He was the face of America's favorite pawn shop until he was stabbed in a prison cell, left bleeding and silent. But what if I told you someone warned this would happen, and no one listened? Why did Chumlee say, "If he talks, they'll kill him"? And why? Is Rick Harrison now fighting for his life behind bars, accused of trafficking, betrayal, and secrets, darker than anything we saw on TV? It began with a whisper in a prison hallway. One guard to another. Eyes wide, voice, low steps, quick. Then came the frantic radio chatter, the banging of steel doors, the echo of boots running across concrete floors. But by the time the emergency team reached the cell block, the damage had already been done. Rick Harrison, the world-famous face behind Pawn Stars, lay bleeding, curled on the cold floor of his solitary cell, whispering his son's name. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Corey Harrison didn't hear it until hours later. He was sitting at his kitchen counter holding a cup of coffee he never got to sip when the call came through. At first he didn't believe it. He thought it was a prank, a cruel one but not uncommon, given everything swirling around his father. Then came the confirmation from prison officials. His father had been stabbed. He was alive for now, but barely, and Corey's world shattered in an instant. But what if it wasn't random? What if someone wanted Rick dead? Not for what he'd done, but for what he might say. This story is not about a TV star who fell from grace. It's about betrayal, secrets buried under fame, and a dark warning from someone who had seen it all coming. That someone was Chumlee. Before Rick was ever sentenced before the charges of human trafficking and money laundering made national headlines before the courtroom cameras and tear-stained family testimonies. There was a quiet moment. A moment between Chumlee and Corey, a cryptic warning that made no sense at the time, but now rings louder than ever. Tell your dad to keep his mouth shut. If he talks in there, they won't let him leave. At the time, Corey dismissed it. Everyone was tense. Everyone was speculating. Chumlee, always eccentric and emotional, had been especially erratic in the weeks leading up to the trial, but now with Rick in a hospital wing of a high-security prison, stitched together and heavily guarded, Corey is looking at that warning in a whole new light. And he's talking for the first time since the sentencing. Corey Harrison is revealing the fear, the suspicion, and the full truth behind his father's imprisonment and the brutal attack that followed. Let's go back. Rick Harrison wasn't just a TV personality. He was a brand, a cultural icon, the gruff nonsense patriarch of the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, a man who built a multi-million-dollar empire from old coins and dusty antiques. Viewers loved him. Tourists lined up daily just for the chance to catch a glimpse of him behind the glass counter. But behind the scenes, something far darker was unfolding. And if you listen to Corey now, you'll hear him say it was hiding in plain sight. He wasn't just buying and selling antiques, Corey says in one of the clips that has now gone viral. He was managing people, moving them, storing them. I didn't want to believe it at first, but the signs were there, and now I can see it. The allegations rocked the nation. Rick Harrison, once America's favorite reality dad, accused of being the mastermind behind a trafficking operation that used his pawn business as a front. The FBI had been watching him for years. Undercover agents posed as buyers, suppliers, even sellers. Surveillance footage was collected. Financial records were subpoenaed, but it wasn't until one of his former assistants turned whistleblower that the hammer came down, and once it fell, it came with weight. No one saw coming. The charges included money laundering, tax evasion, and worst of all, human trafficking. The trial was a media frenzy. Every outlet from TMZ to CNN had cameras stationed outside the courthouse. The public couldn't decide whether to weep or rage. How could a man who made us laugh every night on the History Channel be capable of something so sinister? Rick denied it all, even when the evidence was laid. Out in neat little folders on the courtroom projector, he kept his head high and jaw clenched. He claimed it was a smear campaign. Jealous competitors, angry ex-employees, disgruntled acquaintances all conspiring to ruin him. But the jury wasn't convinced. The mountain of evidence was too steep. And when the guilty verdict came, the room fell silent. The man once known for his jokes and haggles was now a convicted felon, sentenced to life in prison. Without the possibility of parole, Corey didn't speak. To reporters, then, he was pale, trembling, and furious, but not at the system, at his father. I asked him, Corey says, now I asked him to come clean before it went to trial. I told him, if there's anything, tell me now, let me help you before it's too late. But he looked me dead in the eyes and said, there's nothing to tell. That was the last time I believed him. Corey's heartbreak is visible. His eyes look hollow, his voice shakes, but it's his tone that really grabs you. Not just sorrow, but rage. Rage at the betrayal. Rage at what his father's actions have done to their family. Raves that, maybe, just maybe, someone inside that prison knew things the world didn't and tried to silence Rick before he could open his mouth. 'Cause here's the thing, Rick Harrison didn't die, but he was supposed to. Corey says the stab wounds weren't meant to wound. They were aimed at the heart. He says the neck, the lungs, not the kind of stabs you give to scare someone, the kind you give when you want to end them. And then there's the real twist. No one saw it. There were no cameras functioning in that corner of the wing. No guards in the vicinity. No witnesses. Just Rick alone in a secured area, attacked with a weapon that hasn't been found. The official prison report lists as an attempted homicide under investigation. But Corey isn't waiting for an investigation. He's pointing fingers. There's someone inside that prison who wanted him dead, he says, and I think it's someone who doesn't want him to testify. Why? Testify about what? That's the million-dollar question. Or perhaps the billion-dollar one. In recent weeks, rumors have been swirling that Rick had been approached by federal investigators again, this time from a different branch. Some say Homeland Security. Others say it's a deep internal task force, investigating a larger ring connected to several trafficking operations in Nevada and California. Whatever the case, sources suggest, Rick was about to cut a deal, provide names, reveal contacts, connect the dots, and just before that could happen, he was attacked, which brings us back to Chumlee. Chumlee, once the comic relief of Pawn Stars, has remained largely silent since Rick's conviction. But Corey says there was more to Chumlee than met the eye people. Thought he was the goofy sidekick, Corey said in a private podcast appearance. But Chumlee was paying attention. He saw things I didn't, and he warned me. What did Chumlee know? That's still unclear. But Corey believes that Chumlee's warning was based on real knowledge of the criminal circles Rick was allegedly part of and how those circles treat snitches. And now Rick Leeson, a prison hospital, bruised, bloodied, and silent. The man who once ran a shop full of treasures now fights for breath, for life, for survival. And his son Corey stands outside the system, screaming into the void, hoping someone, anyone, will listen. I don't know what my father did.